Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
Okay, well, welcome to our first Twirl Talk on Tuesday, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And it doesn't get better than having Dale be our first guest tonight. So better than just hanging out and not doing anything. I thought it'd be good. And if you all want to mute yourselves, that would be amazing. And we're going to spend the first bit just talking. Dale, I've, kind of had some questions for him. And we can talk back and forth. And then the second half are open to questions from you. So if you've thought about some fabulous questions you want to ask or something's brought up while we're going, and then I'm recording this. I know some of you will love that, but I'm recording this because I have a YouTube channel then, and we can go ahead and put it on the YouTube channel. And then if you have anything that you want to go back and remember, or if there's anything you want to share with anyone else, then you can go ahead and do that. And also, we realize everybody's busy and you're in your homes and there's 100 things going on. So if you have to leave the meeting, don't worry, no judgment, okay? So if people have to leave, if the little ones have to go to bed or the dog is barking or something horrible. Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
So
Hi.
if everybody wants to mute, then you'll get an invitation and I'll tell you when to go ahead and unmute. We'll just do a free-for-all then so that you can ask questions. Okay, so we know that this is a really weird time. And so for me, I've constantly been sitting around trying to think like how to do things to keep people inspired and keep them going. And I think quite honestly, everything that's out there on the net right now is so exciting. It's like it's never been before. So that is really a golden opportunity. And we always want to look at these things as a chance to do something we've never done before as an opportunity. So Dale, if you would like to say hello and kind of talk about this time and this moment and what there is to do, then we'll just kind of start talking about whatever we want to talk about.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dale White, and currently I live in Dayton, Ohio, and we're all about baton twirlers. And so I'm going to do a little demonstration. I brought my baton tonight because it fits. So I'm just going to start with just a little finger twirl. I thought you'd love that. And I'm wearing my hat, and I usually don't wear my hat, but it's been so long since I've been to the barber. So my hair is so long and just a little bit on the gray side, I must say. So yeah, things are a little bit different, but one thing that is the same is we all are joined here by baton twirling. So this is kind of fun. I love that I'm able to see people as I talk, and loving that you guys are going to be here and asking questions as well. So it's a little weird time, but I really do feel like that there's going to be a lot of positive things that can come out of it. I've happened to teach a couple of FaceTime lessons, and it was really interesting because when you teach FaceTime lessons, the twirler has to really pay attention to the words that you say. And so I think that that's good mental training. So, and it was challenging for me to try to explain in detail without getting up and showing somebody, in full, or being with the athlete, side by side, which was challenging too, because I'm usually that type of a coach to do that. So anyway, it was different. So we're all learning, and I think a lot of positive things are going to come of this. And the best part is that we all can connect. We would have never connected like this had we, not been in this situation. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, Dale, so let's go back just a little ways, just a couple years. And Sue Usher, your Maggie was waiting and now she's gone. So just let her know I can let her in if you need to text her, because she may have given up, but I can let her in. So I want to know from day one, what was interesting about twirling to you and what made you say, I want to do that?
Interesting. How I even got exposed to twirling. Well, when I was a little boy, which was, 18, 19 years ago, so don't laugh. All right, it was longer than that. When I was really little, my dad would take me to the football games on Friday night, the high school football games, and I would watch the high school band, and the drum major would be performing in front of the band, and everybody was loud and cheering, him on, and I thought that was the coolest thing. Well, after that, I decided that I really wanted to do that. I thought that was really cool to do it. I think my dad would preferred that I would have been more involved in the football part of it than the twirling part. But anyway, he took me to the county fair, and I actually won a cane on where you throw those hoops, and then the hoop gets over a cane. I won a cane. And every time I got one of those canes, I would come home, I would start twirling this cane. My dad says, "You really want to do this, don't you?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I really do want to do it." He says, "Okay, well, I'm going to get you lessons, but if you start taking lessons, you do know that you have to be really good at this." And I go, "Oh, I'm going to be really good. I promise I'll practice and practice and practice." So there I had my cane. And I remember one time the majorette line at the high school band, they had hula hoops mask with not hula hoops, but they were twirling hoop batons. Well, I decided I was going to take a hula hoop and I was going to attach my cane to this hula hoop, and I was going to twirl like what they did. So I would come home after the game and I would just do everything that I saw on Friday night. That was my exposure to baton twirling. And even though I really wanted to lead the band, oddly enough, I never was in the high school band. I never did high school band, and I was never a drum major because I started competition soon after that when I was very young. And I loved that part of it, the competition part of it, and the rest is history. So that's really where it all started.
So sometimes there's a problem with parents, especially in this time. Now, people aren't seeing their coaches regularly, and there's a lot of reliance on parents. So could you have succeeded without a parent involved?
Oh, well, absolutely not. Well, first of all, I was 6 years old. So, and I was twirling this cane around and breaking everything in sight. But when I did start twirling, my dad, because he said, you know, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna be good at it. You're gonna do it. I'm gonna put a lot of time and effort into this, and so are you. He was pretty serious, but he was also coming from the place of being on the state basketball championship team. He was also a basketball coach, so he approached it really athletically. It was my dad and I the whole time throughout my twirling career. My mom was there; she liked it, but she didn't know anything about it. She would say things like, "I really like when the baton crawls on the back of your neck." She was talking about a back neck roll. This is how my mom would refer to twirling. And but my dad got to be really good as to the ins and the outs of twirling. But he always knew that as a boy twirler that I would be maybe teased and, maybe not be the most popular among my peers in school. He kind of knew that, and he protected me by bringing me to the basketball team. I had to practice alongside of them with my twirling. They would be practicing their drills. I would practice my twirling. And it was never an issue, because my dad protected me in that regard. And then he got to learn, because he was very involved in twirling himself, the science of it. He would know things like breaks and patterns, and if I wasn't tossing the baton from the center and all of those things. And he would always make sure that he would pretty much remind me of all of those things if I wasn't doing things correctly. So yeah, my dad was very involved in the twirling. And of course, every night, he would take me to his job where he worked, and I would practice in the warehouse room. And of course, every night it was drama with coming home, and I would want to quit every single night. And then he would say, "Okay, then good, you get to quit." I would say, "No, I would never quit. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding." So it was that kind of a scenario, which is very typical of young kids that are developing a passion for an activity. They love it so much that they hate it, and then they hate it so much that they love it. So it was all of that, and my dad was right there alongside of me. So I think I answered your question, Kyle. I'm not sure, but
that's all right. So there's some questions coming up in the chat, and I'll save those right now. So as a coach, Dale, and we have so many athletes here, what are the qualities to you, whether they're a champion or not? What are the qualities to you that make that you walk away and go, they're a really good student?
There's only one that is dominant, and that is, number one and foremost, is attitude. I think that if you have a really good attitude as a person in life, you approach something positive. If you are present, if you want to be there, and you are giving your percentage, meaning I'm going to go to this lesson and be 100%, you can bet that the coach is going to give 100%. So I think that attitude is everything. I don't mind teaching anybody of any level at all, any level at all. It doesn't really matter, but as long as their attitude is really good. I've taught some really great kids that had really bad attitudes, and it was not very pleasant. I've also taught some very novice kids that loved baton, and they had a smile on their face the entire time, and I loved it. It was a great experience for me. So it's all about the attitude, and if you have a great attitude, that inspires the coach to have a great attitude, and then it's so productive in that session. So I would say that attitude is the most important thing.
So probably tied on to that, the very same thing. What makes you exhausted at the end of a lesson? What makes a lesson really hard?
You mean in the negative way or
Yes.
the positive way?
Yeah, no, in a negative way. So tips
way.
for the kids, like, okay, if you're one of these athletes making the lesson hard for your coach, what are the things that you're doing that are making it hard?
Eye rolling, side eye. Let's see what else. If I'm explaining something to an athlete and I can tell that there is a forced resistance to it. In other words, if an athlete doesn't really like something that I'm showing them and they are not wanting to do it, they will consistently not try to do it good because they don't want to. And the more they behave like that, the worse it gets. And then you start looking at the clock and thinking, when is this lesson over? When is this lesson over? Because it's all about the attitude. You've got to try. The thing about, and all the athletes need to remember this, that no matter what happens, you just try to improve a little bit. A coach never reacts to a drop. A coach never reacts to, a bad body position or, any of those things if you try to improve a little bit. And you really try. Just the attitude of trying and making something a little bit better is all a coach really wants to see, because we build on that. So I think that athletes think that their coaches want them to be perfect right off the bat and too quickly. That's never the case. And I think that sometimes will create that barrier that you're talking about.
So play off of that for me now too. And so can you think of any, like, you remember the lesson because something really memorable happened from a good way? Like, do you have any really memorable moments with athletes in the practice setting?
There's been so many actually. I think that some of the best moments that are the most joyous for me is when kids never think that they can do something and then all of a sudden they can do it. And it's funny because you don't react necessarily to, as a coach, I never reacted so much to their accomplishment of catching a trick or doing some kind of a skill, but I would always react and just be so happy about their reaction in their face, about how much that it was almost like a light switch went on. So knowing that they've crossed that barrier of confidence, you just know that they're going to come back next week and want to do more. So there's been all of those levels, and it can experience that on a novice level, a beginning level, and even the elite world level. It's on the elite world level, it's the first no drop that you're going to do in a freestyle, or the first no drop you're going to do in a solo with everything in it, no cuts. It's just such a confidence builder, and to be able to be there in that gym during that time is just so rewarding. And throughout my of 95 years of teaching, I've had a lot of those, fortunately. So yeah, it's quite diverse, but it's real fun.
Well, so through your history, twirling has evolved so much, and everyone on this call is in different stages of that and watching it. So what are you proudest of in the evolution of our sport?
Wow. I remember when I twirled, I remember having to concentrate on doing my fishtails, and then my coach said, now we're going to have to add body work. And I go, uh-oh, I wasn't a dancer. I wasn't a gymnast. I didn't know really too much. And so that for me was doing fishtails in a deeper lunge. So, I got to be pretty good at lunges. That was the depth of my body work back when I was young and learning. But you look at what twirlers, you look at what I did when I was a twirler. I look at what my students did when I was an 18-year-old coach. I look at what happens when the sport became worldwide and world level, and just the evolution of that, just the quality of it. And as you can see, and we can look at all that on the internet now and social media with all these posts of the old videos, the new videos. It's amazing what the kids are actually doing. Sometimes I keep thinking, wouldn't it be great to have all of the old timers come back and look at twirling now to see what their reaction is. Even now, people that've been away from twirling 20 years or 30 years, even though they were great twirlers back then, they come out and they see twirling now and they think, oh man, it's completely a different thing than it used to be. I think that whole evolution is great. What I'm really proud of is how it just keeps growing and it keeps reinventing itself. The other thing I'm really proud of is that it's now transitioned into the world of entertainment. We now have twirlers that are in Cirque du Soleil. We've had stage performers that have been twirlers that have been at the Lido in Paris. We've had now people that are twirlers that have made it to their own productions, like the production of Blast, that are coming from the drum and bugle corps world. There's just so many different types of venues now where twirling can fit in that that never used to really be the case. So I'm really proud of the global universal quality of twirling, and to be actually a part of that from the very beginning, even now as I continue on with it, that's a true treasure.
Well, and I think that for our current twirlers to be able to embrace the past, that I think everything new is built upon what came before. And it'd be really easy to dismiss the whole majorette stereotype. But I would love for our current twirlers to hear thoughts on, like, how do we embrace the past and where we came from? Because most of us in our generation, when I'm looking across the board here at Elaine and John and Cindy and all of us, I came because I saw somebody in a parade. You came because you saw someone on the football field. Well, somewhat our world level athletes are so isolated, and thank God for the internet, but they're twirling for other twirlers. And so there's got to be an element of embracing the past, but being able to meld the two together. So how do we teach our youth to expose their skill and embrace the past and keep it in the 21st century?
I think that comes basically from our organizations primarily first, and I think that it's things such as, for instance, I think that I remember as a young athlete in USTA, the big thing was to win your cup, to win the very first cup. Well, that cup, I remember when I was really little, this is too funny, but I remember practicing holding a bucket in my garage and practicing the pose that I would be on the podium on the number one spot, and practicing how the photographer was going to take my picture holding that bucket. And that was my cup. And at that point, I had not won a cup yet. So, you strive for that cup. So that becomes sort of a historical, iconic figure for me that I strived for. But along with all of that, you get to know the twirl magazines, the drum major magazines, and all of the people that are listed there. Their history, you get to collect those things. You get to know, and I remember memorizing all of the twirl magazines back in those days. I wanted to memorize all the people that was in them. I wanted to know where they were from, who their coach was, and you just read it over and over and over. That is ingrained in your head. And that really forms the history that I think that you're talking about. And then you go to the national championship and you see these trophies with all the names on the trophies and, all of these special names that all of the trophies have. I know that, that's all part of that history that the twirlers really revere and they really hold true to their heart. They really want to be a part of that history, and it evolves that way. So I think it comes from the associations and how you preserve your history, but then you herald the accomplishments of the kids that are moving the sport in a newer direction. So, and that's a natural evolution. It really is. Now that we compete internationally, that evolution of the sport it just escalates naturally anyway. But it's sad when those twirlers now that are in our sport for 5-6 years, they don't know what happened 20 years ago. And I think that preservation of the history is something that I think it should be really the job of all of our associations to bring that into their training and into their learning as well. So
it does. It matters.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then we're going to open it up to the audience.
Sure.
Here.
Yeah.
So I kind of said, if you could be a mad scientist and you could take all of the parts of your favorite twirlers and all of the qualities, what would those qualities be that you would put together in that one person?
Oh, I love this one. I love it. Okay, they would be, number one, they would be a premier dancer. They would be a Olympic gymnast. They would be a Oscar-winning actor. They would be a musical composer. They would be flexible. They would be artistic. They would be funny. They would know how to be sad. They would have all of these things. But the thing that I would want them to be the most, that would be two qualities that would make them last a lifetime and just be at the top of their game, and anything would just to be kind and humble. If you have all of those skills, if you become a great twirler and you become a star, or you have achieved so many trophies or titles or whatnot, those things are all fine and dandy, but after a while, those things are going to be gone, and those are going to be just part of your history. What do you have left? You have to be a kind and humble person. And there's nothing more gratifying to see than an athlete who's achieved the highest of the highest levels, but yet they're still very nice and humble and just very kind, personality. So I love that. So I would like to see athletes have all of those qualities. So that's not asking for too much, is it?
Not too much at all. Well, we have some on this call. I think there's some on this call. But
Yay.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute you all. And Savannah sent in some great questions, and Susan asked one. So I'm going to do Susan's first, and then we'll do Susan's, and then I'm going to ask Savannah's, and then you can kind of chime in. And I know it's awkward on Zoom. And Elaine, why don't we do Susan, then I'll do Savannah's question, and then Elaine. And then you can just kind of take turns, because I know it'll be a little awkward stepping in on questions. But Susan's question was, who was your first coach and where?
My very first coach was a man by the name of Dick Paetzel, and he was from Logansport, Indiana. But he was also a kindergarten teacher at Spinning Hills Elementary School in Dayton, Ohio, and he taught under the studio of Fred J. Miller. But he had actually a sub-studio in Xenia, Ohio. Then after Fred, then I started working with, or after Dick, I started working with Fred Miller.
Small potatoes, small stuff.
Yeah.
Savannah's first question, then Savannah, if you have yours listed, you can ask them after this. But her first question was, how do you stay on top of the dance twirling trend? What's the secret to your elite students being groundbreaking over the last several years?
In dance twirl?
Staying on top of the dance/twirling trends.
Well, that's an interesting question, because, I've told, for some of you who know me, I've told you this 1,000 times. It's my biggest regret in twirling was never having studied dance. And because in my head, I think I'm really good. I think I'm a really good dancer, and I can go through and so I study the videos and I've taken actually a lot of ballet classes this week on all the free classes that are now being given virtually. I've taken all of those because they're just really fun. So in my head, I think I'm really good. Luckily, nobody gets to see me do all that though. But anyway, because I knew that I did not have that background, and I knew that you had to have that background in order to excel, then I just learned the things that I needed to learn for the time. Things like, illusions, or, how to do a cabriole and into grand jetés. And, you do those kinds of things that we do in baton. And at first you just kind of mimic that a little bit. And then you find out, oh boy, that's not technically really correct. So you got to delve into the dance world. So it's either you go into the class, you take dance, and you learn it, take dance and or gymnastics, or you get online and then you just start learning all the fine technique. The thing that I did, I couldn't actually do it to the degree of the dancers I was speaking with, but I would actually go to ballet classes and watch, and I would just learn and ask 1,000 questions. Like on a cabriole, you don't really clang your feet together, right? No, you don't. You have to put your legs this way in order to do a cab. Okay, well, you ask these basic questions because I knew that there was a certain technique, but at the time I didn't have that. I didn't know that coming from that world. In gymnastics, it was, now that we have some gymnastics that we have to use, it's the same thing. You just have to search and ask the right questions. And even though you can't really do it, you have to learn how to approach it as a coach and how to develop that, because you certainly don't want to do anything that's going to harm the athlete either. So it's you just have, I keep learning all the time, and all of the videos and all of the stuff that's on the internet now is just tremendous as far as learning all those skills.
So, but do you think part of your talent goes to your strength of mental imagery? So it kind of goes hand in hand with training, and your ability to have a visual mental image of what you want to be the product creates your strength in being able to produce it. So translate that then not just as a choreographer and a coach, but as an athlete, and the importance of your ability to use your mental imagery.
Exactly. For me, mental imagery was started as a coach. I would get an image as to what I wanted something to look like. And let me preface all this by saying that when you go to dance and gymnastics, those are two venues, but when you go to the theater, when you go to ice skating, when you go to the circus, when you see anything that's in motion that's of a performance nature, you're going to learn and draw from that. And at one point in my early career, I completely immersed myself in all of that. And what you do is you understand that there's no better form of communication than sitting in a darkened theater looking at somebody performing on stage, right? I mean, there's just such a communication about that when you're looking at somebody of quality on stage that's performing. So you take that, you go to the figure skating and you take that and how they communicate, because really what it is, it's all communication, isn't it? It's what do they say, what is that performer saying to you? What adjectives are they describing to you? But they're doing this without talking, and they're doing this without saying one single word. So you have to absorb that a little bit. So I became really involved in that. And I really wanted twirlers then to be able to communicate and to have their own voice on the competition floor and have their own voice in a performance. And so you take all of those things and you layer that with any kind. I remember taking a lot of kids, in my condo and just making them watch skating videos, making them watch old twirling videos, making them watch dance videos. You just immerse yourself in the performance of movement and the performance of nonverbal communication. And that's what it's all about. You can learn how to do a thumb flip and you can learn how to do a double illusion. Yeah, good, big deal. But then what are you going to do with that? What does that say to an audience, after a while? How is it that those skills are going to be translated into a true performance? What is it? That has to come from the heart. That has to come from your experience as to what it is that you learn those skills, and you're going to take those skills to say something to a viewing audience.
Right, and I don't think you're just talking about freestyle. It's importance to every.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the most moving performances have been through solo. I remember watching. It was her first name. I missed her first name already. Melissa Cox was her sister. Anyway. Mary Beth. Yeah. I watched a performance of hers as solo at a world championship. Oh my gosh. I was like, it was the most riveting thing ever. I mean, she was just fantastic. I remember watching Stephanie Lean do a strut routine one time that was the most beautiful thing. And she was doing it to march music, obviously, but it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And it was just so well communicated that you find it transcended all of the skills that were necessary in order to do those things. So it's things like that you search for, you remember, you tap into, and you use those references in order to teach someone that this is the level of expertise, this is the level of quality that you try to strive for. And it's more than just learning how to do a thumb flip and a double illusion.
Elaine, you had a great question when you emailed me today.
What I wanted Dale to speak about, because I knew your background was USTA, and then you've become, a force in NBTA. What is the best of both worlds? What skills or techniques or styles do you now use that's a melding perhaps of both organizations?
That's a great question. The reason that I became an MBTA judge was my involvement with the Wheaton organization in Maryland, because when I had been going there for many years teaching those kids, and I was only teaching them what I thought, the only thing I knew, and they appreciated that. They were doing well. But I kept thinking, there's more than just me. I need to get involved in where they came from, and I need to understand the mindset and the values of the MBTA crowd. So I became a judge, and that's the only way, so that I could get exposure to a lot of different types of styles and approaches. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. That was a great learning experience for me. The things that I see that are differences in the organization were, and I only really try to look at the positive of both organizations, because I don't like to dwell on anything that's negative. Basically, of course. So I loved the way MBTI, as we were speaking before, that they revere their history and their past, and all of the kids basically know all of the things. I mentioned the blue curtain, for instance, at the beginning of the session. They all know the former champions. They all know, you have your majors that are very iconic in the organization. All the kids know them. And so I like that. I think that there's a real nice reverence that the membership there has toward their history. I also think that the kids are very competitive. And I think that they also know that in order to win, you have to do a good job, obviously. I think everybody's like that in all organizations, but I think that in MBTA, it is, there was the old cliche that, well, if you're going to twirl an MBTA, you can't drop, because, the no drop is the big deal. And I kind of like that, because it was in USTA, I would have kids that would do a 7-drop solo. They'd come off the floor and they go, how'd I do? I said, you had 7 drops. What do you think? Maybe we should work on not having so many drops. So I like the fact that there was an emphasis of total performance in MBTA. In USTA, I like the developmental aspect of building skills from the groundwork up, not learning bad habits, disregarding bad habits. I also like the organization of the levels that are used as far as the development there. So you take all of that, and really, if you look at history and you look at even present day twirlers, the twirlers that really do really well are really twirlers that have experienced both organizations.
Right.
So I think that there's really very good qualities, and there's a lot to say for that.
Yes.
So.
Okay, who has a question next? Kyla, you had one, I believe.
Little Kyla? Hey, Kyla, what's up?
She hasn't written down, but now
1 minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
I wish I had my answer written down for you.
I know, sorry. She's looking at what she said. Here you go.
How is your quarantine going?
How is my quarantine going? Well, it's better now that I get to sit here and talk to you. So before it's a little lonely, so thanks for being with us tonight. But yeah, so far so good. I have a lot to do. I have a very clean apartment, I will tell you that. It's very, very clean. I clean it all the time.
You guys didn't realize we put this together tonight just to entertain Dale. Okay, Susan, do you have something? Susan Asher, no.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, Savannah, do you want me to do your next one, or do you have it?
I have it.
Okay, go ahead.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's going to be a good one, Dale.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
Go easy on me.
Okay, what is your most memorable twirling moment, either as an athlete or as a coach?
Most memorable moment. Okay, so do you mean en route to a competition? Do you mean on the floor, performance-wise?
A performance, like performance-wise.
I've had several.
Okay.
But there's no possible way that I could just say one. There are some very iconic moments in the past that I will never forget. So I guess we can start there, right? And one of them was yours. You were fishing for that, weren't you? Just kidding. No, just kidding. I mean, I think that many of your performances have been iconic and certainly memorable, and will definitely be timeless. And I think that look at Mark Nash's performances, look at Janae Dorn's performances, those kind of performances that you can now go on Facebook or Instagram and you can actually see somebody's posted them. That's a true test of when a performance is timeless and it's worth seeing again. And of course, I mean, I am very, very proud of that. Of course, to be a part of that and to be a part of that history and to see them excel and to see that performance last, it's certainly a wonderful feeling. So I would say that there have been many. There have been many, and it's not just my students that I've seen have those iconic performances, but for me personally, that was your question. So yeah, there you go.
Well, being part of all of these years and forever and a day, I know it's sometimes the hurdles you cross. And I know Dale and I together, I have a moment because there was some rough time when transitions were being made into more the artistic style of things, that there were some challenges to overcome. And I remember being a judge and there was a battle between a little bit of Mark being very artistic and then another twirler who was a little more standard. And I was holding my ground on how I thought that score could go. And I mean, up in the stands, it was a long battle. We're talking time that the athletes had to stand out there on the floor. And I refused to change my range. And I just remember the emotional letdown when Dale and I ran into each other finally in Milwaukee, all the ramps coming down the arenas. And I remember the emotional letdown of holding my ground because I believed in what he was doing and I believed in the artistry. And so I think as a coach and as an athlete, being able to take a risk and maybe not even winning, but I mean, I think that that's something, Dale, that I always credit you with, is that you've done things not to win. you've done things for the betterment of the sport or what you believed in as an artist.
That's very true. That's very true, Kyle, and thank you for those kind words. I do appreciate that. You know, you don't do anything for the win because you don't know. You can't control that. You don't know that. You don't even have any control over what you're going to place. The only thing that you have control over is how you do on the floor and how you prepare for that performance. You have no control over it. I have seen the most pristine performances not win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no control over that, you know. And I've also seen and had students that have won competitions that I didn't think were very good, and I didn't think that they would win. You know, so you're going to get both. You're going to get both sides of that. But you know, it's just if you go for the quality, you know, the ultimate reward, I think, is knowing that you've really maxed out on a performance and you've really done something special. Now, if it wins, that's great. That's like icing on the cake, right? That's like the cherry on top of the cupcake. But, you know, you get the extra little reward. But isn't it greater that 30 years later, maybe that same performance is going to be posted on Facebook, or somebody's going to reference something that was done in that performance. Maybe it was a move, maybe it was just a style, maybe it was just a method of choreography or whatever. But for me, it's always about the work, and it's always about making something better and better and more detailed. We call it artistic detailing and nuancing. You know, you just try to make it so that it's so special that it has its own voice. Sorry, I kind of rambled a little bit on that.
I love it. Who else has a question? If not, we have a list of Savannah's.
Uh-oh.
I do.
Okay.
When you were competing, what mental tools did you use to help you under pressure?
Matt, Sophia.
Good boy. What mental tools under pressure? Yeah, okay, I can tell you, I can relate to you just a couple of little stories. I was competing in Philadelphia, and I remember I had to compete right after a gentleman named Phil D'Angelo. Well, there was Phil D'Angelo, and then there was who was a great twirler, and then there were, some of you know him that I've just mentioned, and then there is another gentleman named Mickey Schaefer from Texas. Mickey Schaefer did a forehead bounce. Okay, now what he did was he tossed the baton up flat, literally stood underneath it, walked underneath the baton, and it came down, and he bounced it off of his forehead, and in the arena you could hear it crack. So that was his specialty trick. I think that he appeared at nationals maybe one time, and that was about it. But it was the oddest thing ever. Well, that scared me so bad that because I was little, I was a lot younger then, I was thinking, I know that my coach is probably going to ask me to do that someday, and there's no way that I don't want to do it. So I got really afraid. And I remember hiding behind the curtain, and back then it was in a big ballroom. That's where the nationals were held, and we had curtains, and I wouldn't go out because I was so afraid of my own performance that I didn't know what to do. So from that moment on, they had to keep announcing my name. I wouldn't go out. And so finally I did. Didn't do very well. And from that moment on, my dad said, good old dad, he said, you know, we got to work on some techniques here so that you're not going to be afraid, so that you're going to be able to handle this pressure, because you were afraid. You got scared out there, didn't you? Like, I was terrified. So, you know, we worked on a few little things, but his big thing was, you have to be so confident. Do you go to a competition and know that you can do a no drop routine, for instance? Do you know that? Do you really know it? And if you can answer that question, I know I can do that, then you're going to be ready. You're going to have confidence, and you're not going to be fearful. But if you go to a competition and you think, oh, what if I drop my first trick? I've been dropping it like a lot lately, and I don't know if I can really do it. So, and as a coach, what I really try to do is I try to get so much confidence and so much security in the athletes that they know that they can do that routine. They know it. And if they don't do the routine, if they do have a drop, or if there is an error, that it's you know, kind of a fluke. But I think that that's really important to add that and to build that confidence, to make that confidence so secure that the confidence in your own method of training is going to work for you there. Because I think that when you go to a performance competition, you shouldn't be thinking, my dad always said to me, it's probably about 90% mental and 10% physical when you go to a competition, because when you and I are in the gym every day at home, that's the 90% physical that you're putting in. That goes away when you go to a competition. Then it becomes all 90% mental that you have to think about. So, you just do again, one more time, what you've been doing a billion times at home. And I think that that's kind of a simple, it's not a hocus pocus type of a psychology approach, but I think that there's something to be said for that, because you just get to the point where you can do it. And it's almost like, well, I know I can do it. How many can I do now? I have kids that they won't stop until they do their 10 no drop routines. They have to do 10, and then if they do 7 in a row, they can stop. But if they don't, then they add 3 more on after that. I love that, because I think that will give them so much confidence. They know that they can do that routine. So we work on stuff like that. I think that that's important.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Sophia?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, so do your 10 no drops in a row. You'll know, and when you get to that contest, you'll know you can do that routine. Do you have an issue with? Is there a problem with your confidence, or is there a problem with your fear?
No, I was just wondering.
Oh, okay, all right, there you go. Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
I do.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Hey, Natalie.
Hi. As a judge, would you rather like good technique or a harder trick?
Oh, that's a good question. What do you mean by harder trick?
Say I'm contemplating doing like a spin triple or a triple on the floor. Like, would you rather me do a really pretty triple and catch it, or attempt a harder trick?
So do you want me to put my judge's hat on and tell you? That's what you want, right? Okay.
Yes.
So from a judge's perspective, the first thing that we're going to look at is the quality of the move, whatever the move is, right? So if you're going to do a double illusion and it's perfect, you're going to get a lot of good credit for that double illusion. If you do a triple illusion and you're all over the place and you still caught it, but you stumbled and the baton was 3 feet away from you, but you still caught it, the judge is going to look at a few negative things about that. Okay, so that's from a judge's perspective, right? So you're going to probably, the double illusion is going to have the same value as that triple illusion because it wasn't done very well, right? And I'm just using that as an example, just kind of throwing that out there. But let me put my coach's hat on. From a coach's perspective, the triple illusion, that's cool because you caught your triple illusion, right? But you also know that when you come back to the next lesson, we got to fix that triple illusion up so that it's going to look like that double illusion, right? Because the judge is going to value the double illusion more. This is why a lot of people don't understand why maybe sometimes an easier routine is going to win out over a harder routine. Judges don't look for how hard something is. They look for how good it is done. They look for the quality of it. It's all about the what and the how. What it is and how it's done. It's the relationship there that we have. It's called derived achievement. You're going to achieve something. The expectation of how something is achieved, the quality of it, depends on the depth of what it is. The double, a perfect double illusion with straight legs and great toss and perfect reception and all that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you go onto the floor, you want to make sure you think about quality first. When you're home practicing and, you can practice a triple illusion. That's cool. You need to do that. But when you're doing a routine, you got to remember that judge is looking for quality first.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else has a question?
I do.
Okay, Delaney.
Do you remember your first no drop routine?
Oh, how cute. My first no drop routine. Yes, I do you My first no drop routine was my very first contest. And I remember my mom said, now you got to remember, my mom didn't know anything about baton. So she says, no, we're going to dress you up. My coach said, just dress him up nice so he goes to the first contest. I didn't know what a contest was. I just thought, okay, you just go and you do your routine. So I went and my mom dressed me up. Well, she dressed me up as if I was going to Sunday school. I had a little bow tie and I had a little jacket, and, that's what I thought dressing up was. We thought that that's what we did. So anyway, that's what I did. Went to the competition, took the jacket off, I think, did my routine, and I was in beginners, obviously. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I had to twirl against all the girls back then. So I knew that I had to be pretty good. So I did my little routine, and I did a no drop routine, and there were 13 of us. They lined us up on the floor, and I was so excited because I saw the trophy table over there. I thought I was going to get a big old trophy. Well, I got first place. I won. And they gave me a medal. For the beginners, they gave them a medal back then. They didn't give you a trophy. I was so disappointed that I was determined that I needed to come back and twirl again and get a big trophy. So that's what inspired me. I know that trophies inspire a lot of kids. You see those nice, big, shiny trophies. I wanted one of those. I didn't get one when I first went to the competition. Then I started getting them after that. So yeah, but it was my very first contest. What do you think about that?
Overachiever.
There you go. All right.
Next, who else has a question? If not, we can go to what Savannah's got an answer.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you gotta go right there. So, I was wondering what type of practice schedule and pre-competition warm-ups do you observe in your more successful athletes?
Oh, that's a good question. I can tell that you really want to be great, don't you? Yeah, okay. Well, the more you practice, the better you're going to get, right? But let me tell you something. First of all, you have to be a time manager. You've got to manage your own time. So right now, what do you think you're going to be practicing on the most? You're going to be practicing your rolls and your contact material, right? So what you do is you have to manage your time, and you have to put a lot of value on, let's say you have 2 hours. Well, in those 2 hours, you have to be really, really good. You have to really make it productive. So a good quality 2-hour practice is better than practicing 4 hours with bad quality. Now, what do you mean? What do we mean by bad quality? Well, bad quality is when you go to the gym and you have an hour or two and you spend half the time on your phone, you spend half the time wiping your shoes off, half the time arguing with whoever it is that you're with, half the time on getting mad at the baton because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So all of those things is not really good quality practice, right? I've always told my students, I've never said, you've got to practice 5 hours. Never said that. You practice so that every day you leave the gym, you feel like that you're just a little bit better than you were yesterday. If you don't, and you have to accomplish one thing, you can leave the gym being proud of one thing that you've done. And that you keep doing that every day and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But you want to make sure that whatever time that you devote, when you go to church, you would never just do whatever you wanted to do at church, right? You have to sit there, pay attention, listen to, the minister or the priest or whatever, and you have to listen to what he has to say. Okay, so you have to be nice. You have to make that good quality time. It's the same thing. And you have that hour. So you go to the gym for your hour, you make that good quality time. When it's over, it's over. Then you can start playing. But if you're going to practice, make it good quality. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be lots and lots of hours, but it does have to be lots and lots of quality. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Savannah, you had a great question because basically everybody has a year off. And I liked your question about the year off.
So my question was, why did competitors sit out a year after winning? Like back in the day, they would sit out a year after they won a title. How can athletes now today take that mindset of what was formerly done for this technically our year off? How is that example that was done so long ago going to help our athletes today?
Well, back in the day, it was an act of courtesy. So what it was is somebody would win something. If you were the champion or whatever of an event, back in those days, you would not it wasn't a rule, but it was a act of courtesy that you would take the next year, and you wouldn't do that because it was basically like giving somebody else a chance to win, right? So, but then that person that would come back, they would come back and do an exhibition performance, okay, or do another event or whatever. That kind of has gone by the wayside. You know, we don't really have that so much anymore. I think that there are some organizations and some events where, you know, you win something. I think like in Miss Majorette, for instance, you can only win the category of the division one time, and then you have to wait till you're into the next division. You know, there's certain rules like that. But, you know, for the most part, I think that because twirling has evolved to the point where if you don't keep up with it, if you don't use it, you lose it, you know? So I think that there's something to be said for that a bit. And I think that now with the year off, I think that because people were basically pretty much ready to go this year, and then all of a sudden, boom, it stopped. We still have that built up in us. You know, we still have it. We got to let it out somewhere. So this is the perfect opportunity to take that achievement from this year and then layer it now with whatever you can do to make all of that an enhancement and even a higher level of achievement. So all of you kids are really at an advantage because you've already had something. Now you can build on that. It's not like starting over, you know, because nobody has seen what you had now anyway. So, you know, the season never started. So it's, you know, it's like a continuation. So I look at that as being sort of an advantage actually. And the other thing too is, and you know this, Savannah, that sometimes when you take time off, you get rejuvenated. Your body, whether you know it or not, is rejuvenated. And when you come back, you're like, how can I do this? I haven't been doing this and it feels so good to do it. Am I right? That's right? Yeah. So it's that type of thing, and it happens physically, it happens mentally. Your body needs, because you're a repetitive athlete, you need to take time off. You know, now this is, you know, I didn't really think that it would be this much time off, but we are taking, you know, it's okay to take time off right now. Your aerials are probably going to take some time off a bit. You know, contact material and rolls don't take too much time off, but it's okay to do that. You know, you're going to rejuvenate. You know, it's almost like you have to recharge, basically. So did I answer your question? Kind of?
Totally. No, I think it's a great recharging. So we have time for one more question from the gallery, and then Savannah had a good one here if nobody has one from the gallery. Okay, so from Savannah, when you're not at twirling or a guard event, where would you be?
Okay, I would be at the theater, first and foremost, if I could afford it, because I love going to any live performance. I love musical theater. I love dance productions. I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and we're very fortunate here to have, we're just really surrounded by the arts here in Little Dayton, Ohio, and it's great. It's wonderful. I can literally walk 2 blocks and be at a theater. Well, when they were open, I could walk 2 blocks and be at a theater and see a production, either a Broadway show that's traveling through or a professional dance company. You know, I can go down to Cincinnati to a dance company and go to Columbus to a dance. All these are within an hour. So I would be in the theater because I am addicted to all of that artistry and motion. You know, it just fascinates me. I never get tired of it. I always just get immersed in that. If I am not there, then guess what? I would probably be looking at YouTube videos, basically. So, yeah.
Well, and I think we're so lucky. And I think that that's what's lucky about this time is that had it happened when we were competitors, we would not be connected to each other. We would not have other things to watch. And I think you are all so very lucky right now. And I think it's a blessing in disguise. Yeah. And I think like tonight, we're so lucky to have Dale here. And Dale, thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you, Dale. It was lovely.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming.
For you guys being part of the first one, the one next week is kind of a secret that I'm not letting out yet. But I'll give you guys a heads up as soon as I have it, and I'll give you the registration links. So next week's Twirl Talk on Tuesday will be with my goddaughter, Jordan Jones. And
Cool.
so Jordan started as a twirler and as a dancer. And we're just going to use some of her information about working hard, because everyone thinks being a celebrity looks glamorous. And I know from firsthand knowledge that the kid never stops working. And so there's kind of different things. Like if you saw her golf video the other day, you know, it was just like she's under contract. She has to get that done. Probably the next one she's going to do, because she's in Michigan, is going to be fire baton with me. So that'll be the one we're going to do next week. And if any of you have topics that you want to do, then let me know. The week after is going to be a parent forum. So coaches, I have a couple great parents that have some really great information on how to be a kind of a really good competitive parent. Do any of you have any questions for me?
No.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank all of you. That was fun. Thank you all very much. I appreciate everyone.
All right, we'll talk to you again soon. It was great to see you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Susan.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Elaine. Love your shirt.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Olivia.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.